Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'd like to thank my guest, Sherry Brown. We've had a fabulous first episode and we're going into episode 2. And we were talking about children and how they accept what is said to them when it's wrapped in love. And I just wanted to expound on that a little because the wonders of life have always been the child that grows up with no parent, or the child that grows up in a poverty situation, or the child that grows up with abuse or neglect or anything like that. It amazes people that these children are still connected, sometimes to the abuser, sometimes to the parent that's not there, sometimes to the neighborhood that they grew up in that is totally on a failing rate. We always wonder, or a lot of people wonder, why do they still remain attached? And that line that we closed with in episode 1, which was children can accept it when it's wrapped in love. If that's the only love that they know, and that's all they've been exposed to, they accept it. They accept the fact that they don't have breakfast in the morning because they don't know that that's a part of what they're supposed to have, or they don't have that hug. They know that that's a part of what they don't have. And everything else seems strange to them. Having that person sit down and talk to them about a nourishing meal, or talk about a home environment with dad and mom or grandma and everyone there for Thanksgiving dinner or different things, they don't tend to know that. So in your program, what do you do with those children that seem to have that brokenness? And I understand, like you said, you sometimes have to do things a little different for them, but in that brokenness, in that moment, what is it that not only you do, but how about what we should be doing? What advice do you give to the parent that's struggling and they're trying to make it, but they just can't? How does it work with them?
I like this question because it's a very layered question. First off, I would like to say, when I was doing my mentoring at the detention center, a lot of the children's, of course, they've come from broken homes. Some of them, the home is not broken, they just don't like rules. So there's a way that you have to deal with them also. I had talked to the girls separate from the boys because that's what they required. And I noticed with talking with girls, they like to write because girls like to talk. So I had to give them journals for them to write and tell me things that they would tell me things that they wouldn't tell anybody else that's going on in the home. And I would pray and ask God how to respond. And I would respond back to writing to them back in their journals. Boys, they want to talk. They want to talk openly. They don't want to write nothing down. They want their answers right then. So I was able to talk to quite a few of the boys, and they had issues and things that they wanted to discuss. I would like to say to the parents, my prayers are with you. My son is 32 now, and having had raised him the majority of the time by myself, I understand how hard it is sometimes. I only had one child. I can't imagine with a lot of single parents, usually women, who have 2, 3, 5, 6 children. And sometimes the older children are helping taking care of the younger children. So then the older children are taking on a burden that they shouldn't have to, because they yet are still children and they're not allowed to live out their life as a child up until, they leave home. So there's a variety of dynamics that's going on in the home. And I would just like to encourage the parent to take a moment as best as they can, because some are working 1, 2, maybe 3 jobs, part-time jobs, to make ends meet. And then with, like I said, the pandemic have happened, it doesn't make anything any easier. And then you have some single parents or parents that are taking care of, their parents, along with taking care of children. So there's so many different dynamics, but I would want to encourage the parent to seek help, tend to themselves first. It's a must. It's not selfish at all. Because if you don't tend to yourself, if you break down, especially if you're the only parent in the home, then things tend to fall apart. Because even though you have those older children trained to help the younger children, they still don't get it. They really don't get it all, because we as adults sometimes barely get it. We just flying by the seat of our pants and making it work and do what it do. And we sometimes don't seek the help that we should, but we should. But take care of yourself first. It's a must. If it's just sitting down for 10 minutes, telling everybody, I need 10 minutes by myself. I just need some quiet. Just need some quiet to reflect, because you have to. You have to give yourself that downtime, that woosah moment, that breathe in, breathe out, to let all of that toxic, at least some of the toxic, get off of you, And that's what I would encourage for parents to do, to tend to themselves first. And if you do, then you'll be able to more clearly see what you need to do for your children and the help you need to get.
Yes. And sometimes I think that they confuse the help. And I'm only saying this from those that I have spoken to in the past, and some of those that have questions about, well, where do I go or what do I do? A lot of times, because finances is the key in the home, they seek the resources for the finances, but the self-care, they're not seeking any help for. So you're absolutely right to be able to take that moment and clear your mind. And like you said, 6 kids running around and you trying to do 2 or 3 jobs, and your mind needs a break. You do need some kind of resource or method to refrain from going crazy, trying to keep yourself on level and trying to keep yourself going. So in starting this business, you said that you had started doing your part of counseling, and everything was done before you got into the schools. You had been doing, the type of counseling that you had been doing, 6 years prior, to even going into schools. What led you to that path?
I understand my assignment. I understand that children are the base. They are, because one day they'll be adults. And if we don't try to address the base, try to help the base, try to undergird the base, then that base will grow up to be the structure that we see now. Some of the structures that we see now, we'll see them in the future because we did not address the base. We send the base to school, we give them academic skills. But do we give them people skills? Do we give them do we help pour into them and let the creative part of them come out? Not just giving them rote skills of how to read, write, and count, I mean, those are important, yes, very important. But that is not the sum total.
It doesn't make the whole total. Yes.
No. We are spiritual beings first. We are emotional beings. We are physical beings. We are intellectual beings. But it seems like the only thing we address is the intellect.
Now, let me ask you this. I love that you brought that up, how we need to revamp the base. How early do we start?
It depends on the age, because you can only give so much. Uh, um,
Well, as a parent, not as a program,
okay,
as a parent, when do we
as a
start?
parent, you start from day one, because psychologists say that children are a sponge between the ages of 0 and 5. They're such sponges, and
Exactly.
they receive everything. Even when you think they're not paying attention, they are paying attention. Why? Because let that other child get in trouble for something, and that child that is not in trouble at the time will repeat what you said to that child that's in trouble. So they hear, they're listening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why, sometimes we do have to watch what we say around children. So, yes, as early as when I say, even before they're born, when they're in utero,
Mm-hmm.
playing music to them, reading to them. Music is a universal language, so it's something that is used widely to help teach children, and they remember better. So if you're playing music to that child, I know a lot of people have played classical music to their children, and it helps their children to be calmer
Calm.
type
Mm-hmm.
people, you
Mm-hmm.
know. There's always exceptions to the rules, but on the most part, there are calmer type children, and they become more calmer adults. They are more of thinkers. We have to create more thinkers, not just reactionary people. Even creative people, they are thinkers. They think differently. I think on the
Mm-hmm.
right side of the brain, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
But as early as before they're born, what you
Mm-hmm.
allow to be said around them, and what you allow to be played around them, which means you may have to change your circle of friends,
Mm-hmm.
because you take the growing of your child inside that important, that you don't allow yourself to be around certain people. You don't allow yourself to watch certain things or listen to certain things. I might get thumped for this. I don't care. But it is so important about how we treat ourselves when our children are growing on the inside of ourselves. Now, I know a lot of people may be in certain situations that the home is not conducive to a good, peaceful environment. However, whatever you need to do to take care of that, then that's what you do. I'm not going to make any suggestions at this point in time, but whatever you need to do to make sure that your growing child comes up in a very good, nurturing um, atmosphere as best you can, then that's what
Mm-hmm.
you do. Because you're attending to the future also, and
Yes.
you have
Yes.
to start it before they're born.
And we're going to end this episode with that thought. If you missed episode 1, please go to my website, go to YouTube. You will see the posting for it. We're going to continue on, and we hope you join us with next week's episode.